Yesterday, I made a new friend on REDNOTE, Zoe. He told me that in the state, the homeless population increased by 18.1% last year. He asked me, what about China? Do you have homeless people there?
Glad to have you, amazing viewer, once more at Comfort for Life. Today we are tackling a hot debate. A question has been posed. Is Americans' homelessness crisis being exaggerated? So many people overseas, more specifically Chinese on Xiaohoushu, are questioning if the stories are true. So in this video, we are letting Americans tell their own stories. No filters, just the truth. Whether you're in China or just across the globe, this is about seeing the human side behind the headlines. And when I say headlines, you know what I mean. So smash that like button, subscribe if you're new here, and let's dive into this. Enjoy the rest.
Hi everyone. I just wanted to take a few minutes to talk about homelessness in America. I've seen that a lot of Chinese people think that these videos of people sleeping on the sidewalk in the winter are not real. They think that the problem is exaggerated, but it is really a very serious problem here. Partially, the problem is because we don't really have anywhere for people with severe mental illness to go. They can't be put into a hospital. That's against their rights. So even if they have schizophrenia or some very serious mental illness, there's nothing anyone can do to keep them from endangering their lives. And oftentimes they do end up homeless and living on the street. Another issue is that due to the economy, a lot of towns lost most of their jobs. People got depressed, they started using drugs, they got addicted, and now they're sleeping on the sidewalk or in a tent under a bridge. Most of these people were just normal people at one point, and they had normal lives. They didn't think this would happen to them. Another group of homeless people that you will see are people who actually are working, but they just don't get paid enough to live, to rent an apartment. A lot of people live in their cars now. They try to park in places where it won't be very noticeable. But yeah, this is common, especially in states like California or Colorado, where I live. Everything is so expensive, even for people who have jobs. A lot of people just can't afford a place to live. And if the police see you sleeping on the sidewalk and it's snowing and it's negative 10 degrees outside, they don't care. They don't have any obligation to help you. No one has any obligation to help you. We like to say in America that there's a safety net for rich people and rugged individualism for the poor, which means basically the government will help you if you're rich, but if you're just a regular person and you don't have any family to help you, then you're really just on your own, and you might end up one of those people sleeping on the sidewalk.
小红书
I ain't never seen so many people with missing limbs. I mean, just everywhere. Well, I mean,
I'd like to think that should have triggered the government to agree this is a crisis. If you start seeing people without limbs.
yeah.
In the previous video, I referenced the tragic fact that the fastest growing demographic of the homeless here in the United States are the elderly. And I wanted to break down probably the most simple, straightforward reason as to why. Our elderly here are on a fixed income, but their cost of living increases nearly every month. That, and they are responsible for prohibitively expensive medical care. The majority of Americans, especially our elderly on that fixed income, are one medical emergency away from bankruptcy, away from being homeless. So there are many other reasons and areas of nuance that could be discussed as to why we have a homeless epidemic here in the United States, but I wanted to provide basically the most straightforward reason as to why our elderly are most afflicted currently. And it's been very interesting talking with you all. Thank you for being here and listening and dialoguing.
Yeah, I mean, it would make sense, but then, and it should have. That's what we have, a Surgeon General in the White House for, that he's supposed to handle all that stuff. But as I said, I just don't see nothing happen. I just see the world getting worse.
Living in capitalism is pissing me off. And don't get me wrong, I've lived my whole life in this capitalist system, and a lot of things have pissed me off, but nothing has pissed me off the way that this just pissed me off. The fact that I am renting a unit to store my property in, and the rent on the unit just doubled. And when I called them and went, why is my rent doubling? They said, well, we don't have that many units left. If you don't have that many units left and I have a unit, why am I being charged more for the unit I already have? Why? Because capitalism. And the worst thing about it is the person on the other side of the phone has been cussed out so many times about something they can't control, they're giving you nothing but apathy. I don't care what your problem is. We're all a part of this system. Drown in it with me, friend. I hate it. And the crazy thing is, me not wanting to deal with the capitalist system makes me look crazy. When I tell my homies that I'm about to go buy a used MacBook and I don't want a new iPhone even though I'm still on an 8 right now, people look at me like I'm crazy. You are feeding the system. Stop feeding the beast. Damn, y'all, I'm so mad.
One of the most remarkable things that I've seen about Chinese is how they look at situations. So there have been questions as well. What are you doing? What are the practical steps that you guys are taking as a population, as a people, to help your fellow ones who are struggling? How are you helping people out of homelessness? So we're going to hear what are they doing, and can they bring a solution that could be lasting as Americans, as a population? Chinese believe that if they come together as a community, there's something that they can do. And this is something that we are still struggling to believe in so many parts of the world. We believe that power is in the hands of those people, of the elites, and that's the reality. But them, I don't know how they got to conceptualize this ideology and believe strongly about people's power and them being able to change systems and things. Maybe they will give us tips, because you guys are ancient. We want to learn from you. Tell us, what are you doing? We are all struggling.
I keep seeing the question, why is the American government not doing more to help homeless people? Well, it's actually way worse than that. I used to volunteer for this organization building tiny shelters for people to live in, and we were constantly being met with opposition from the city. They would send these biohazard cleanup teams to come dismantle the shelters we had just built and confiscate possessions they deemed uncleanly, then send people who had just been robbed of their homes and possessions away to nowhere in particular. You see, not only do they not want to help homeless people, they don't want ordinary people to help homeless people, or for homeless people to be able to even help themselves. They will take every measure possible to ensure that homeless people are suffering, because if they're not suffering, they are a threat to capitalism. Just think about it. People seizing land and living.
I don't have the resources necessary to solve homelessness or wealth inequity or provide health care to those in need. The resources exist, they're just being distributed to the wealthy who don't need them. Systemic problems will not be solved by individual actions, and wealth inequity and poverty are systemic to.
Here is now part 2 of facts about Americans that you might not have known. We are kind of in a recession right now in America. It actually means we are having high inflation. You guys have seen the receipts of like the cost of produce and the cost of food. It's insane. So everything has doubled, if not tripled in price. Gas is so beyond expensive. Rent. The cost of houses, our interest rates to buy a house, to have a mortgage, is higher than it's ever been in history. So a lot of young millennials, so anyone from the age of mid-30s to early 20s, the likelihood of them buying a house is almost 0%. Like, no one can afford to buy a house. As you guys have seen, healthcare is insane. So health insurance is very expensive, and hospital visits are thousands and thousands of dollars. So one hospital visit for me was $20,000. One hospital visit. America is free, and we are very grateful, but it's only free to a certain extent. A lot has changed. A lot has changed in the last like 7 to 8 years. Over time, we have been losing a lot of our freedoms. They're trying to be sneaky about it. They're trying to make us think that we still are free, but we're not as free as we used to be. One thing that they started doing is censoring our platforms, our social media, and our internet. They are choosing what we can see and what we can say on public forums, which was never a thing in America. And this just started during the pandemic. So in 2020, 2021. Prior to that, you could say whatever you wanted, and there was no censorship on your statements. So anyone could freely express their opinion or their beliefs. Any news outlets were allowed to report on whatever they wanted, and now you can't. The social media platforms, internet platforms, they're allowed to take anything down.
Wanted to come on here and make a video just regarding continuing the conversation about homelessness. As someone who briefly experienced homelessness, I think it's a really important conversation to have. I was chatting with an online friend about the fact that in many countries in America, people just avert their eyes when they see a homeless person on the sidewalk or in the streets. You know, they avert their eyes almost in shame that, you know, we can't do more to help. For me, I try to smile, acknowledge their humanity, maybe say good morning, you know, of course, if I feel safe to, but I think that we should do that more because it's important to acknowledge people's humanity. So drop your thoughts below. Let me know in the comments.
Okay, so I can share some personal experience. When I was in California, I was living in I took advantage of some homeless services out there. I'm not going to explain my whole reasoning for why I went out there in that particular city. I never had to live within the type of homeless camp that's being shown in the video here, but I did live in like I don't know who it was. I think it was the Salvation Army that I know. I spent the night at a church that the Salvation. No, it wasn't a church. I think I don't know exactly what it was. It was some kind of building somewhere in some neighborhood, and apparently like that local neighborhood had concerns about this particular program running because they didn't want homeless people like sleeping in their neighborhood, and for good reason. I mean, let's be honest, let's be real. Dude, like these people are mentally ill. You don't really know where they're coming from, and you don't really like, you know, like from your perspective, there's someone who has nothing to lose and someone who has nothing and it's just like you have no idea what a person like that would do, and it's obviously, you know, there's obviously concerns, you know, especially if you have children, you know, like that's not something. So I mean, anyway, so like at this place, so I mean, I spent one night there, but like, and there was one guy there who like I almost got into a fight there. I thought I was about to have to like fight because he was staring at me. He was like, "Why did you take my teeth?" And I was like, "What?" He's like, "Why did you take my teeth, man? I was screaming and telling you it hurt. Why did you take my teeth?" And I was like, "Hey, look, I have no idea what you're talking about." And I did my best to de-escalate, you know, verbally, but he was insane. How do you reason with an insane person? And so like I got up and spoke with one of the coordinators, and I was like, look, I think, and I explained, I was like, look, I think this guy is having an episode, and I just want to let you know, like I feel threatened, and you know, whatever. And she was like, okay, I'll keep an eye on it. And I was like, thank you, because the only reason I really did that was to let them know, because like if I had not done that. If I had not taken the precaution to do that and something had happened, it's like it at that point it'd be my word against them, you know. So like, you know, it was very simple. And guess what? Nothing happened. Later on, the dude, like I think the night, I think I had to spend like maybe a week there. But anyways, another night the guy came up to me. He was like, "Hey man, I'm sorry. You know, like I was just, you know, I wasn't on my meds, and shit like that happened on my. I'm like, all right, and I was like, man, I'm cool. I'm like, yeah, it's cool, dude. Like, you know, I was a little concerned about having to fight, but overall, I wasn't that concerned because I trusted that these people knew what they were doing. Because like there's a bunch of people around, and I imagine that they know how to handle that type of shit, right? And they did, turns out. And actually, it just so happens that some of the people that I spent time there with were former military. There was a fine ass girl there. Oh my god, she was so fucking pretty. She was so pretty. She's so ridiculously pretty. Oh my god. Anyways, start thinking about that girl. I can't think about anything else now. Fuck.
Yesterday, I made a new friend on REDNOTE, Zoe. He told me that in the state, the homeless population increased by 18.1% last year. He asked me, what about China? Do you have homeless people there? So I looked into that. Some data says there are over 2 million, some data says it's 6 million. But when you look at Chinese population base, over 1.4 billion, it's only about 0.1% to 0.4%. Honestly, it's really hard for me to find homeless people here in China. So what happened here? 3 years ago, China lifted 770 million rural people out of poverty. The poverty line is just about $460 a year. So what does life look like for the poorest people in China? I live in a village in Libo County, Guizhou, one of the poorest area in China. The government built the roads inside those deep mountains, and it's all free, provided like this, a space for handmade artists to do ceramics, tapestry, and fashion. And they offer free lessons for local farmers. And I have to show you this. All those houses are built by government for free, and you can even find the Simpsons here. It's incredible to see how the government has supported this community. Every villager has at least 0.2 acres of land, so they grow their own rice and vegetables, and it's enough for their daily needs. The farming methods here are passed down for 5,000 years. No pesticides, no chemicals, and just nature, pure organic food. It is so delicious, and seriously, it's the best food ever. Poverty might be one reason for homelessness. It's also a choice for many. Family and community are so important in China. It's almost impossible to starve or to be left over in rural areas. There is always food to share, and people look out for each other. In China, it's not just about escaping poverty. It's about a whole system of support, culture, and community that makes sure no one truly gets left behind.
Hi, I'm Jack. Why are there no homeless people in my region? Now, I want to share my views. Look, this is my house in the village. It has 2 floors. If you had a rural hukou in the village, you can get a piece of land and build a house on it. The ownership of the land is permanent. You don't need to pay real estate tax and any other property fees. So the living cost is low. If you can afford your life in the city, you can choose to go back to your hometown. About 40% of the population are rural residents. Now, follow me. I show you my house. This is the front yard. I can park my car. It's the first floor. Follow me. Here is the living room. Guest room. Is the stair. We dig a well to get water. Bedroom. Guest room. With fridge. Rice cooker. Is the kitchen. Fresh greens. Fresh green. We cook food here. 2 toilets. Open the door. It's the backyard. We raise chickens, ducks, and other animals, and plant some fruit trees here. So, welcome to my hometown, Hainan Tropical Island.